Hi, Dale here from JeepSolid. Thank you so much to all my subscribers out there. Without your support, I couldn't make these videos. It takes a lot of time. If you haven't subscribed, please do so at the end of this video. Today, we're going to be covering how to replace the brake pads on the disc brakes on the front of this Jeep Wrangler YJ. So let's take a look at that.
JeepSolid.com.
So here we are chalking the wheels, getting the lug nuts loose, and putting it up on some jack stands. Now that we've got the lug nuts broke loose, the wheels are chalked, the vehicle's obviously jacked up. We're going to remove the wheel. And you have to break the lug nuts loose when the vehicle's still on the ground, otherwise you're going to have some trouble getting them off. Whenever I'm working on brakes, I always like to throw a piece of cardboard underneath there to catch any debris that falls. Right now I'm going to throw the drain pan under there, and we're going to hit it with a little bit of brake cleaner just to get any of the dust off. We'll just let that drip and run off there, and then we'll get started. Now, focused in on the caliper here, you can see the rotor right here. It's a vented rotor. The brake pad is right here, and there's actually quite a bit of pad left on this one, but I'm going to show you how to change it anyways. The back of the pad is right there, and this is the piston. So we're going to start by prying back the piston on the caliper there just a little bit to give us some room to remove the caliper. And it just moves real slow. There we go, that should loosen it up enough. And on the back side of the caliper here, there's two mounting pins. One on the bottom and one up here on the top. We're going to remove both of these. Now the mounting pins are out of the way, the caliper will rotate out of place and lift off the rotor. Now because I'm just doing brake pads here, I'm going to take the caliper and I'm going to set it up here on top of the knuckle and the rotor. If you're going to be doing more, it's a good idea to get a piece of wire and thread it through the caliper and actually hang the caliper. You want to make sure you don't put any undue stress on the brake line. Now that we got the caliper off, we're looking for any leakage of any brake fluid around the piston or any leakage along the brake line. Make sure the brake line all looks good and is intact. Okay, now these brake pads, this one on the piston just slides right out. There's little pins that hold it in place. And this one is mounted back here and just slides up and off. Now we're going to take our new brake pads and do the same thing. Just slip that one back in place. I'm actually reusing the old ones here because these actually have a lot of pad left on them. When you do replace brake pads, you want to do passenger and driver side at the same time. You don't want to do just one side of the vehicle. Also, when I'm putting new pads on here, I'm trying not to touch the pad with my fingers very much. You want to keep that surface very clean. And the same thing with the rotor. You don't want to get your fingerprints all over the rotor, but we're going to clean that up later anyways. Now the brake pads are designed to move on the bottom and top of the steering knuckle here as they compress. So I'm going to take a little wire brush and kind of clean this up a little bit. And then I'm going to take a little bit of high temperature grease and put it on the knuckle here where the pad contacts it so it can move freely. Being very careful not to get grease onto the rotor. And we're going to put some grease on the top part of the knuckle where the pads are going to contact that as well. Now we're going to take the brake caliper, put it back in place. Make sure these rubber grommets stay pushed back out of the way so they don't get caught on the steering knuckle as you're putting it in place. Hook the bottom of the caliper in and it should slide right on. We're going to double check that these rubber pin covers aren't getting caught up on the knuckle, and then we're going to put the pins back in place after we coat them with some grease. Same thing on these caliper pins. We want the caliper to be able to move on these, so we're going to put a little bit of grease on them too. Now we're going to place the caliper pins on the top and bottom. Then we're going to torque these caliper mounting pins to 132 inch-pounds for this 94 Wrangler. Okay, we're about done now. We're just going to hit it with some brake cleaner one more time. Make sure we didn't get any oil or fingerprints on the rotor or pads. Just want it all nice and clean. So that's about it. We're going to throw the wheel back on here, torque that to 100 foot-pounds. A few key points. You want to double check the brake master cylinder. Check the fluid level in there. Make sure that there's enough fluid because remember we compressed that caliper. Also, when you get everything put back together, you're going to want to pump the brakes. You're not going to have any brakes initially. You need to pump up the brakes a little bit to seat that caliper. And be sure to double check the torque specifications for your Jeep. You can find those torque specifications on Google. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. Have a good day. How to replace brake. Bah.